मनोभितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। वंदेहम श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंचाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। प्राचीन भागवताम की जय। सर्वशास्त्रादि पीयूष सर्ववैदिक सत्फल सर्व सिद्धांत रत्नाद्य सर्वलोकैक त्रिपद सर्व भागवत प्राण श्रीमद् भागवतो प्रभु कलितंतो दिदादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेम वर्षाक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेवाय श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तुते। मद एक बंधु मद संगीन मद गुरु मद महादन मद निस्तारक मद भाग्य मद आनंद नमोस्तुते। असाधु साधु तादाइन अति नीचो ताकरा हाना मुंचा कदातिन माम प्रेम हृत कंथयो स्फुरः। O Srimad Bhagavatam, O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Accompanied by pure love of Krishna, please manifest yourself in my heart and throat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudire नष्ट प्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्ति भवति नैष्टिकी। श्रीमतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्य श्रवण कीर्तनम हृदयन्तस्तु अभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम्। हरे कृष्ण। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। So thank you all, dear devotees, for joining. So we are going to start off with chapter 18. So we are coming. So chapter 18 is titled Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. And then we have one more chapter where finally Maharaj Parikshit meets Sukadev Goswami. Right? So we are coming to the final, like an entire first canto, going through all the different pastimes, coming to the final meeting where Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit are going to meet, and the entire conversation of Srimad Bhagavatam is going to start. So this chapter titled Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. So, are there any comments from any realizations anyone would like to share from chapter 17?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I like the point what you said in chapter 17 is that real sacrifice is to do everything for the pleasure of Krishna, Haritoshanam. And I also like the point that the safest way of using money is to print books and distribute books. Even if a person reads a single line, he will get a spiritual benefit.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes,
I have put something in the chat. I find it a little bit difficult to understand the gold standard that Prabhupada explains. How can using gold instead of money reduce the significance of the that is really difficult for me to grasp. Is it possible for you to explain that, Prabhuji?
Reduce the significance of the
See, you start using gold coins, then everything will be okay instead of using money.
yes,
actually.
I'll explain that. Yes, sure. I'll
Thank you.
come back to that. Let's see some more points here. Realizations.
Prabhuji, I like the biggest takeaway for me from this chapter has been, nobody can identify what is the real cause of the happiness or the distress. It's for us to understand it could be anything, our own self or the karma or, our own nature or any of this. But, also a very strong point is one who identifies the other person as the perpetrator is equally in trouble.
And that's actually a very, very important point. So, the third question I actually put on the group is, why did Dharma not point out the perpetrator on the screen? And this is actually, like, one reason is also like how Vijaya Radhika Mataji said that, how Prabhupada points out in purport, that even Dharma was somehow influenced by Kali. And the main reason for this answer, the main answer is actually the points that you said, that Dharma was actually pointing out that, how can anyone say who is the cause of everything? The actions of Krishna cannot be understood even with our words or with our mental thoughts. We cannot understand. Finally, Krishna is the ultimate cause of everything. And then so anything that comes to us, we actually accept that, anyone who's doing it, they are just like the immediate cause to it. Right? But the real cause of everything, the ultimate cause is Krishna. So Krishna is giving me that for my own purification. And that's the way devotees see it. And Dharma is a devotee, and hence that's the thing. Thank you. Anything else? And that also goes with the point of the question of what is the internal mood a devotee should develop when faced with suffering. Any other points?
I really like that that internal mood that you talked about, how the devotee sees it. Krishna is teaching me a lesson, or that because he wants to improve me, or he's giving me a token of what I deserve to remind me that this is not the place where I really belong, and to intensify my prayer and connection with Krishna. And also the point that if we develop that internal mood, then we'll be able to do the external action in a detached way without envy or vengeance, because we'll just do it as a duty, but we won't. We'll have a mood of service while we do it.
Nice. We'll be thinking of the benefit of everyone while we are doing that. Right. So this point that goes to our first question of, in spite of Dharma not pointing out the miscreant, Parikshit took up the sword to kill Kali. Why? Because that is one is the point of internal mood, right, that both of you have pointed out. And then, having developed that internal mood, there is a need based on the circumstance to do something externally, like in case of Maharaj Parikshit. He was a king. It was his duty to actually take the right action. But then the external action is done in the correct, proper internal mood. So both that internal and external. And that's why I put on the question that I was hoping that answer is actually people talk about the internal and the external. Anyone else? Yeah, Mohan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. And in continuation with that, like, in difficult situations, our true nature comes out. I like that point. That will give us opportunity to, actually it tells us, where to improve and what. That's the point I like.
Actually, even finding out our own faults is actually one way of blessing, because then you can work on it. Normally, our ego is so high that it actually covers our own faults, and we don't even know what are happening. Recently reading how Bhakti Tirtha Swami, in one of his books, he actually makes this point, that if someone gives you an orange, and if you squeeze it, and he was asking his disciple, what will you get? He said, orange juice, right? You won't get mango juice from an orange. And again, he asked the same question. So if I give you an orange, you squeeze it, what will you get? And then finally, he actually comes to the point. But similarly, all these situations, difficult situations, they're actually squeezing us. And what will come is what is there in the core of our heart. all those anarthas or attachments or envy, fall, ego, all those things actually come. Nice one. Anyone else before we start?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Anand.
I like the point how the pride is the root cause for all anarthas, which destroys everything, causes intoxication, meat eating, destroys austerity. So we need to work on that. So,
Wonderful. That's why the positive, one of the questions I actually put on the group is, how do we practice, what was the question? On the 4 positive aspects of religion. It was
austerity, cleanliness.
Yeah, how do we as sadhakas practice the 4 limbs of religion? Right? And one of the points that Ratna Radhika's answer was like right to the point about like developing humility. That's one of the aspects, right? Because pride actually destroys austerity. And then we talk about the remaining 4 points. Okay. So we'll start now? Yeah? Okay. So welcome everyone. So to Vijaya Radhika Mata's question about the gold standard, so Prabhupada actually explains that in the purport, and he says, previously when we actually use money, every rupee or every dollar actually is equivalent to some amount of gold, right? So you spend as much as you actually have. So if you have gold worth 1 kg at home, then that is the amount you're going to spend. And it is true, that is truth in the dealing. Because this is what I have. This is someone buying something and giving you that equivalent amount of gold. And then the transaction is very true. Right? But now the problem is that everything is kind of covered and hidden. Like even now with a rupee or with a dollar, like it is not having that equivalent of the true natural resources that the person has. Someone may not be earning much and he can go and buy an expensive car, right? He could take some loan here, loan there, or use credit cards, all those things. And what is all the basis? You are spending more than what you are worth. And imagine everyone is actually doing that in a society. So where is the money? Where is the actual gold standard? People are just spending out of credit card and money and all those things, and we are losing the real value of an exchange. And if you go back to the Vedic system, it was what? A barter system. I am a farmer, and I want to purchase something. I give you grains, you give me a cloth. True dealing. There's actual commodities on both sides, actual value on both sides. Now you're buying something, and what am I giving? I'm giving you some numbers of a credit card. So where is the truth in the dealing? Right? And it's all hidden. And that's why, you get market crash, commodities, like there's, Prabhupada mentioned the point in the purport, that the inflation, it's because of this reason, because there's no true value to the products here anymore. Is that okay, Vijaya Radhika? Okay. Okay, so let's start. We're going to chapter 18. So quick overview of chapter 18 is, actually this chapter is, finally we are coming to a point where Maharaj Parikshit is going to get cursed by Brahmana. But before coming to that story, we actually have some wonderful verses actually. Up to text 23 is actually, Suta Goswami is first going to summarize what he has said up to this point about Maharaj Parikshit's life. And also very briefly, he's going to summarize the future incidents that's going to come, right, about the curse. Very briefly. So a quick summary. So first few verses is Suta Goswami giving a summary of Maharaj Parikshit's life. Right? And one way, the summary is also kind of, he is actually expressing his eagerness to talk about Parikshit Maharaj. And at the same time, he is actually like encouraging a kind of interest in the hearers about Maharaj Parikshit. So both ways, he himself is saying, I want to speak more about Maharaj Parikshit, and he's giving a quick summary. And when the hearers are listening, they're like, oh yeah, Maharaj Parikshit, so glorious, so wonderful. And then he got cursed. How is it possible? And that way he's actually creating an interest for them to hear more. Right? Okay. So first is the entire summary up to text number 8. So that will be our first section. So we'll discuss up to text number 8, and then we'll take some reflections or questions, and you can also summarize that. Second section is second section is actually after hearing Suta Goswami actually made this point and summarized the life of Maharaj Parikshit. He actually then Sonak Adi Rishis, they actually start glorifying Suta Goswami and saying like, what you have spoken is so nectarian that please don't stop. Please go on speaking. Please go on speaking. And then very beautiful verses. So not so like every verse here is like so filled with nectar, and Prabhupada really takes time to go elaborately to the purport. So we'll be spending time on these verses. And then after Shonakadi Rishi glorifies Suta Goswami, then again Suta Goswami, he actually expresses humility, and then he glorifies how, we should always, Krishna Katha is the thing that is worth hearing. The thing worth doing is just discussing this Krishna Katha. And then he glorifies Krishna himself. And then finally he comes, and then from text 24 of this chapter, he's going to start the story of Suta Goswami, of Maharaj Parikshit. Right? So Suta Goswami will start and then say how once Maharaj Parikshit, he went to the forest and how he was thirsty and hungry, and then he actually takes his bow, puts a snake on the rishi, and then the story continues. Right? So first we'll focus on this. So our first will be section 1 to 8, and then the next part is when the Shonak Adi Rishi speak. So we'll discuss that. That is text 11 through 15, right? And then actually 11 through 17. And then Suta Goswami starts speaking. So that will be 18 to 23. Right? So these sections we'll do, and then see, depending on time, we'll continue on to the story. Right? So all this one way is actually creating the mood for the story of Maharaj Parikshit to be discussed. Right? And also one thing, while we are reading this, see the relationship or the appreciation that the speaker has for the hearers and the hearers have for the speaker. And it's very sweet, like how both of them have this mood of appreciation for each other and how both of them are glorifying each other. Okay, so let's start text number 1. So these verses, like many of these verses, Sanskrit is the longer meter. So maybe Ratnaradhika can actually do the Sanskrit, and you all can do the English. And while she's doing the Sanskrit, you can actually recite along with her. That way you also get them. Okay, so the list is on the order is on the chat. It starts Arunti Mataji, then Devin Telin Mataji, Popinacharya Prabhu. I don't think Kaushalya Mataji is here. She had messaged me that she will be going to India. So she's not on the. Okay, so let's start.
Text 1. Suta uvacha yo vai dronyastra viplushto na matur udare mritaha anugrahad bhagavata krishnasya bhuta karmanaha.
Translation. Sri Suta Goswami said, due to the mercy of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who acts wonderfully, Maharaja Parikshit, those struck by the weapon of the son of Drona in his mother's womb, could not be burned.
So, as I said, now is summary of Parikshit Maharaj's life. So first, the first amazing incident in the life of Parikshit Maharaj is how he was actually protected in the womb, right? And how from the Brahmastra. So here it says Drauni Astra. Drauni Astra means the weapon which was actually released by the son of Drona, who was actually Ashwatthama, and how he was protected by Anugraha. Anugraha, this word comes again and again. Anugraha means what? Mercy. He was protected by the mercy of Bhagavata, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And another word here, which is very wonderful, is Adbhuta Karmanaha. Right? So, anyone remembers this? We read this before also, where one place is Krishna's activities are described as Adbhut Karmanaha. One of the previous chapters. Does anyone remember? So you can just unmute that. Okay, so actually in chapter 8, in Prayers of Queen Kunti, towards the end, actually Krishna's activities are described as Adbhuta Karmana. Why Adbhuta Karmana? There is actually made, the point is made that King Yudhishthir, who was actually so depressed that the entire battle of Kurukshetra was fought for me and so many people have been killed. And then he heard from Krishna, and in spite of hearing from Krishna, he was not convinced. Right? And in that section it said, Krishna's activities are so adbhuta karmana. They are so wonderful that in spite of receiving Krishna, direct instructions from Krishna, and Yudhishthir being a devotee of Lord Krishna, he was not convinced. Right? So similarly here, Krishna's name is actually given as Adbhuta Karmana, whose activities are always wonderful. Krishnasya Adbhuta Karmana. And Prabhupada in the purport points out that how Krishna never fails to give protection to his devotees. So that's why Krishna's name is also known as Achyuta. Right? Achyuta means one who never fails. And why never fails in doing what? The main point is Krishna never fails in giving protection to his devotees. And for that sake of giving protection to his devotees, he is willing to break any moral principles, right? Any laws of so-called dharma to actually give protection. And we see this again and again in the battle of Kurukshetra, that how to give protection to Arjun, he actually broke so many laws of so-called fighting. And Prabhupada in the purport also points out how Shonakadi rishis, they were struck with wonder after hearing how wonderful Maharaj Parikshit's rule was, that he actually chastised Kali. Right? So they were very interested to hear such wonderful Maharaj Parikshit. His birth is so glorious, his activities are so glorious, his rule is so glorious that he had the power to actually chastise Kali. Right? So now they are actually want to hear more. Right? Okay, so let's go ahead. Text number 2.
Brahmakopotitadyastu takshakat prana viplavat nasamumoro horu bhayad bhagavatya yarpishtashayaha.
Translation. Furthermore, Maharaj Parikshit was always consciously surrendered to the personality of Godhead, and therefore he was neither afraid nor overwhelmed by fear due to the snake bird, which was to bite him because of the fury of a Brahmana boy.
So as I mentioned, this is a summary of the story which is also going to come. So Brahma Kopa. Kopa means the fury of a Brahmana. So this is a story further that how we'll read that Shringi, the son of Shamik Rishi, he actually becomes angry on Maharaj Parikshit, and he actually curses Maharaj Parikshit to die by Takshakat. It says here Takshakat. Takshakat means a snake bird, right? But in spite of the curse, so Prabhupada points out in the purport that this was actually, Parikshit was wrongly cursed, right? For what he had done, it was a very insignificant act, but the curse that he was given, that he will die in 7 days, that was wrong curse. And we'll discuss this more in detail when we come to that section, right? So he was wrongly cursed, and in spite of that, how did Maharaj Parikshit take that curse, right? Again, we see how devotees deal with difficult situations, and it actually says, Sammu Moha and Urubhaya. Sammu Moha means overwhelm, Urubhaya means great fear. So in spite of the curse, which he was wrongly cursed, he was not fearful, and he was not overwhelmed or overcome with illusion, right? Right. Yeah. And why was it? Why was he not disturbed? Right. So this is a key point. Why was he not disturbed, not fearful? Imagine, our life is going on, and someone wrongly comes and accuses us and says, like, okay, that's it, death sentence, 7 days to live. Right? How can we not be fearful? It's like, what? I had expecting such a long lifespan, and now only 7 days. But here the point is actually made. Why Maharaj Parikshit was fearless in this situation? And the main word is Bhagwati Arpit Ashraya. Because Maharaj Parikshit was consciously surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was fearless in every situation. And so that is the glory of Maharaj Parikshit. And Prabhupada in the purport elaborates on this point, Then what does it mean to be consciously surrendered to Supreme Personality of God? So Prabhupada actually he quotes this point about Narayana Parayana. So this is one of the famous verses in the 6th canto. Narayana Parasarve na kutaschana bibyate swarga apavarga narkeshu api tulyartha darshan. So this comes in the 6th canto. And this verse is actually saying that devotees who are solely engaged in devotional service to the Lord, Narayan, they never fear any condition of life. For them, heavenly planets, liberation, hellish planets, right? Swarga, Apavarga, Narkeshu, all are all the same. For such devotees, they are only interested in service to the Lord, right? So Narayana Parasarve, na kutaschana bibyati, Swarga, Apavarga, Narkeshu, api tulyartha darshan. So this verse actually comes in the section. Later on, we'll come to the story where Maharaj Chitraketu, right? He actually, before this incident, he already had the darshan of Lord Shri Krishna. And then once he was actually traveling, and then he sees Lord Shiva with Mother Parvati sitting on the laps of Lord Shiva, and he's actually talking to an assembly of sages, right? And when Chitraketu Maharaj sees this, right, he actually dares to speak, in one way, like offend Lord Shiva and saying, like, how is it, Lord Shiva, you are supposed to be a spiritual master of the whole world, and how is it that Mother Parvati is sitting on your laps, and you are actually talking to all these sages, right? So he dares to speak this way. And Lord Shiva, because he's so exalted, he didn't mind. He understands the mood in which Maharaj Chitraketu is speaking. But Mother Parvati immediately curses him and says, you dare to speak? Not even Brahma, not all those great personalities are actually correcting Maharaj Chitraketu, and you dare to correct, Lord Shiva, and you dare to speak? I curse you, you actually take birth in a body of a demon. Right? And then he actually becomes Vritasura. So even after that curse, what is Maharaj Chitraketu's reaction? He actually comes and says, oh Mother Parvati, what you have given, that's what I deserve. He's not disturbed by all that curse. Again, very beautiful instance of how we see devotees of the Lord, in spite of reversals, they are totally undisturbed. Right? And he accepts the curse. Yes, that's what I deserve. Right? And then Lord Shiva actually speaks this verse to Mother Parvati. And they are like, everyone in the assembly is like amazed. How is it? He just, like, such a great devotee. He got cursed to take birth in a family of demons, and he's totally undisturbed. He happily accepted the curse. How is it possible? And then Lord Shiva actually makes this point. He says, because he is Narayana Parayana. He is only absorbed in the service of Lord Shri Krishna. So it does not matter whether he is in the Swarga, Apavarga, Narkeshu, wherever he is, heavenly planets, hellish body of a demon, it does not care, because he is only interested in service of Lord Narayana. Right? And this is actually a practical point for even us devotees. We see devotees who are like now we know how one of our wonderful Maharaj in ISKCON, his name is Kadam Kanana Swami Maharaj. He's been diagnosed with cancer and he's in the final stages. So I heard that, they were asking Maharaj that how is it that, he appears so fearless, he's still doing his like very powerful kirtans. And he made the point, well, now I'm serving Lord Shri Krishna, I'm serving Srila Prabhupada's mission. And after that, I'm going to continue to serve. It is just a change of service. So why should I be fearful in this situation? Right? And that is the mood of a devotee. Right? So here, in spite of Maharaj Parikshit being cursed, wrongly cursed, and that too by a who? By a small boy, and who was actually under the influence of Kali. And Maharaj Parikshit himself is such a glorious personality, right? In spite of all those conditions, Maharaj Parikshit was fearless. Okay. And this, this theme we see again and again in the Bhagavatam, that how devotees, in spite of all the challenges, they are always fearless because they are Narayana Parayana. They are always absorbed in service of Lord Narayana. Okay, let's go text number 2.
Utsrujya sarvata sangam Vigyata jita stitihi Vyasakerjaho Shishyo Gangayam Swam Kalevaram.
Furthermore, after leaving all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to the son of Vyasa, Sukdev Goswami, and thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead, and at last gave up his material body on the bank of the Ganges.
Right. So in 3 verses, how from his birth, his activities, and then his final life, like how he's going to leave everything. All is summarized very quickly. So he says, furthermore, Utsrijya Sarvataha Sangam. So after leaving aside everything, all association, right? Then he actually understood Ajita. Ajita, one who is never conquered. So another name, so one name of Krishna that we discussed in text number 1 was Achyuta. Achyuta, because he never fails in giving protection to his devotee. Here we read the word Ajita. Ajita means one who can never be conquered. Right? And then it says Samsitihi, Vyasake Shishya. He actually received knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva. Who is that? Sukadeva Goswami. Right? And then he actually gave up his body on the bank of these Ganges. Okay. So, right, so if you see the Gangayam Swam Kalevaram, right? So he actually gave up his material body on the bank of the Ganges. So, okay. So important points in the purport Prabhupada focuses that, oh yeah, okay. So another word is Vigyata. Vigyata means he actually understood Ajita. Ajita means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom the son of Sukadeva Goswami, son of Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami, and then he actually gave up his body on the banks of the Ganges. Okay. So Prabhupada in the purport talks about this word Ajita. Prabhupada says the word Ajita is significant. Right? The personality of Godhead is known as Ajita because he is unconquerable and he is so in every respect. In every situation, the Lord is unconquerable. Right? So, okay. So I'll quote one very nice word. This actually comes again and again, and even in conversation between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai, this verse actually comes. This is this is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-3. So I'll just quickly share my screen. This verse is very important, so I want to show it here on the screen. Yeah, okay. So everyone can see this? 10:14-3. So you can recite along with me. Gyane prayasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam stane stita shrutigatam tanuvan manobhir ye prayaso jita jito apis aisya traisya trilokyam. So in this verse, that is actually, it says how Lord is Ajita. Ajita means, oh, unconquerable one, right? And in this explanation, Sanatan Goswami actually makes a point and he explains why the Lord is Ajita. And then he actually says, here it says Tanu Van Manobhir. Right? So when you see these words, Tanu means the body, Van means Vak, that is words, and Mano means mind. The Lord cannot be conquered by the body, by the words, and by the mind. Right? So that is one explanation that Sanatan Goswami gives. But then it actually, this verse goes ahead and says, here prayaso jita jito. So, but that unconquerable becomes conquerable when one actually throws away the process of speculative knowledge. And he actually accepts that I cannot understand the Lord with my speculative knowledge, with my body, with my words, with my mind. But if I use my body, words, and mind in offering respects to the descriptions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and if I dedicate my life to these narrations of Krishna Katha, then that person who is actually unconquerable can become conquerable. Right? So it is only through devotion, through persons who have dedicated their life for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with their body, words, and mind, then the unconquerable becomes conquerable. But otherwise, if one on their own respect tries to gain control, conquer the Supreme Lord, he is Ajita, he is unconquerable. Okay. Then Prabhupada further points out that how by the grace of the spiritual master, Sukadev Goswami, the Maharaj Parikshit, he actually understood this knowledge, because verse says Vigyata. Vigyata means he actually understood the Ajita. He actually was able to conquer the unconquerable. Right? Why? Because he actually Tanuvan Manoved, with his words, with his body, with his mind, he completely dedicated himself to Sukadev Goswami. Right? So Prabhupada elaborates on this point that how Maharaj Parikshit, he humbly submitted before Sukadev Goswami. And you actually consider Maharaj Parikshit's position, like he had everything to be proud about. Right? He had he was proud. He could have been proud about that. Oh, I'm so fortunate that even in the womb, when I was in the womb, Krishna personally came and protected me. Right? And he could be proud about like opulence. He actually read how they performed 3 horse sacrifices. Right? And he could be proud about his power, so powerful that I conquered Kali. Right? Or he could be proud about his detachment. Oh, see how I gave up everything and came here in the banks of everything we can actually think about. He could be proud of all this. But in spite of everything, he actually took that humble position in front of Sukadev Goswami. And because of his humility, he was able to actually understand Ajita. He was able to conquer the unconquerable. Okay. So that's the one point Prabhupada actually talks about. And then this verse is actually, so previous verse is actually showing how Maharaj Parikshit was completely, consciously surrendered to the Lord, and because of which he was actually not afraid of the snake bird. This verse is actually showing the higher taste that Maharaj Parikshit had. That because of that higher taste, he was able to actually give up everything. Utsrija Sarvata Sangam, leaving all his associates. So you can consider Maharaj Parikshit, he was such a glorious king. He had conquered the world, Kali, everything in his city, like in his entire world, he was the emperor. Everything was going on according to Dharma. Everything was going on so perfectly, right? And all of a sudden he's cursed and he was able to give up all that in 7 days, right? So he gave up everything. And how could he do that? How could he give up everything? Prabhupada and purport points out. Param Drishtva Nivartati. Because he got a higher taste in hearing Krishna's higher taste in devotional service, he was able to give up everything and say that, oh, Krishna made this arrangement for me so that I can actually completely dedicate myself to hearing Krishna. Right? Only because of that higher taste, he could actually give up everything, all this emperor and kingdom and everything. And Prabhupada says, from Bhagavad Gita, we understand the quality of Lord's energy that is superior to material quality of energy. And by the grace of a bona fide spiritual master like Sukadev Goswami, it is quite possible to know everything of the superior energy of the Lord, by which the Lord manifests his eternal name, quality, pastime, paraphernalia, and so on. Right? So the person who is Ajita, unconquerable with our mind and senses, can become conquered if we actually become in that mood of submission to a spiritual master. We actually dedicate our body, our mind, our words to the service of the glorification of the name, the quality, the pastimes of the Lord. Otherwise, Prabhupada says, otherwise it's very difficult to find the Lord through Vedic literature. So basically, Prabhupada is quoting that verse, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam, Adyam Purana Purusham Navayom. Vedeshu Dullavam, Adullavam Atma. Vedeshu Dullavam means it's very difficult to understand the Lord through all the Vedas. Vedeshu Dullavam, Adullavam Atma Bhakta. But it actually becomes very easy to understand the Lord when Atma Bhakta, when one is actually engaged in devotional service. So again, practical point here is that detachment that we see in the life of Maharaj Parikshit, it was possible because he had a higher taste for Krishna's devotional service, higher taste for hearing about Krishna. And practically for us, that means that we need to get a higher taste in spiritual activities, because only then we can actually develop a detachment from all the lower things that is actually holding us here in this material world. And that's why our acharyas, we actually pray. You know, if you're not getting the higher taste, we can actually pray. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his bhajan, he actually says, Ek bar rase matore. Just once, let me taste that holy name. You know, and then how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually saying in Shastakam, Nayanam galad ashrudharaya. When will your eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Right? So we can pray for the taste from Krishna. And once you get the taste, then easily give up all the things which are obstacles in our spiritual life. Okay? Text number 4.
Notama shloka vartanam drushtam tatkat katamritam syat sambhramo untya kalepi smaratam tat padambujam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. This was so because those who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and who are constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, do not run the risk of having misconceptions even at the last moment of their lives. Hare Krishna.
So here is actually making the point that, there's a verse in the second canto, Bhagavatam, first chapter, text number 6. It says, Etavan Sankhya Yoga Bhyam Swadharma Parinishthita Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Spriti. It says, that verse actually says, Janma Labha Parapumsam, the highest perfection of human life, right, is actually, which is achieved, okay, is actually to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead at the end of life. Ante Narayana Smriti. And why is this the highest perfection of life? Right? We read in Bhagavad Gita, right? Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nashta atra samsaya. Right? And then who are at the end of his life quits his body, remembering Krishna. Krishna says, Antakale cha mam eva, remembering me, he will actually come back to me. He will attain me. Of this, there is no doubt. Right? So that's why this verse in Bhagavatam quotes that if at the end of our life we can actually remember Krishna, Ante Narayana Smriti, then we will attain the highest perfection. And so now coming to this verse, Na Uttama Shloka Vartanam. So this verse is actually saying Uttama Shloka Vartanam. Uttama Shloka Vartanam. Uttama Shloka means the personality of Godhead, who is actually glorified by shloka, by words which are uttama. Uttama means the highest, or which is actually beyond tama, beyond any kind of ignorance. Right? So uttama shloka vartana. So the words which are actually glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and vartana means those who live on them. Our life is actually to hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to nourish the nectar of Krishna. Right? And that's why in the third verse of the Bhagavatam, what does it say? Digama kalpataror galitam phalam sukhamukad amrita davya samana pibata bhagavatam rasam alaya. And what is the main point there? The entire life should be dedicated to relishing the nectar of Krishna Katha. And that verse is saying, you drink the nectar of Krishna Katha, and it is so sweet that you're so absorbed in that, and then you faint. And then when you wake up, again you drink the nectar of Krishna Katha. So here it's actually saying that if we want to attain that perfection of life, smaratam tat padam bhujam. Smaratam means remembering of Krishna when ante kalepi. Anta kalepi, at the end of life. If you want to attain that perfection of remembering Krishna at the end of life, then we have to uttama shloka vartana. We have to live on these narrations, these glorifications, this Krishna Katha, right? And then the next line also says, Dushatam tat kathamrita. And you have to be engaged in glorifying constantly kirtan. We are hearing, we are absorbing ourselves in nectar, and constantly glorifying. And if we are doing these two things, right? Uttama shloka vartana and dushatam tat kathamritam. Then antakaleti smaratam. Then at the end of life, for sure, we will remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And by that remembrance, we go back home. Right? So very nice verse. So this so because those who have dedicated their lives to the personality of Godhead, constantly engage in remembering the lotus feet, do not run the risk of having misconception. Then there is no risk. If you have dedicated your life to these instructions to Harikatha, then at the end of life there is no risk, right? You will attain the highest perfection. There's actually a verse in Mukundamala Sutra that Prabhupada, I think, like you can say, like Prabhupada's favorite verse in Mukundamala Sutra. It actually says, Krishna tvadiya pada pankajaranam advaya me vishato manasa rajahamsa prana prayana samaye kafa vata pitta kantava rodhan vidho smaratam kutaste. And then Mukundam, King Kulashekar is actually praying in this way. He's saying, at the end of my life, when there'll be kapha, vata, pitta, that my throat will be choked up with mucus, bile, air. It is very difficult situation at the end of my life, final moment. How will I remember you, oh Krishna? How will I remember you? Right? So hence, King Kulashekar is praying that now I am good consciousness. So let me actually let the royal swan of my mind enter the stems of your lotus feet. Because at the time of death, how will it be possible for me to remember? Because you can just imagine that we experience so like physical difficulties and health challenges, and we many times are like, oh, this is so painful and so on. But imagine at the time of death, it could be just that kind of pain multiplied 100 times, 1,000 times. It's very, very, very difficult situation. How can we remember Krishna at that time? Right? And this verse is giving the solution. Whole life, you hear Harikatha, you speak the glorification, that's your life. Speaking, hearing, Harikatha, that's it. Going out, preaching Krishna consciousness, that's it. At the end, there is no risk. No risk. So then that's how a devotee can become fearless, because you're assured. Like, just like practically, if there's an exam, and if you have prepared well for that exam, then, you're sure that, okay, exam is there, I prepared well, so at the end, I will clear the exam, no problem. Right? But whole life, if you are not prepared for the exam, then naturally, exam is like fearful. What questions will come? How will I, do in this exam? If you're prepared well, no problem. So the entire life is a preparation for this final exam. So Prabhupada says, for a common man, it is very difficult to remember things as they are at the time of death. But by the grace of Lord and his bona fide devotees, one can get this opportunity without difficulty. Without difficulty, we'll be able to remember Krishna by the grace of Krishna. So text number 5.
Tavat kalirna prabhavet pravishto piha sarvatraha Yavadisho mahan urva yam abhimanyavo ekarat.
Translation. As long as the great, powerful son of Abhimanyu remains the emperor of the world, there is no chance that personality of Kali will flourish.
So here, Yavat and Tavat. So we have seen this in previous verses also, where it is Yavat and Tavat. Yavat means as long as, and Tavat means so long, right? So Yavat, as long as Abhimanyavaha, right? The son of Abhimanyu. As long as the son of Abhimanyu, and what are the qualities? Ishaha, he's the Lord. Mahan, he's great. Urvyam, he's powerful. Ekarat, he's the emperor. As long as the son of Abhimanyu, Parikshit Maharaj, is the emperor, right? Tavat, then so long, the Kalihi, the personality of Kali, na prabhavet, will not flourish, right? Though Pravishta entered in. So though it is Sarvata, though influence of Kali one way is everywhere, but still Kali cannot actually have his influence because the king is so powerful. Right? So Prabhupada explains that personality of Kali had entered the jurisdiction of the earth, and he was looking for an opportunity to spread his influence. But because of power of Maharaj Parikshit, he could not do anything, right? Even though he was present everywhere. And so the entire previous chapter is based on this. Maharaj Parikshit, how Kali actually surrendered and said like, oh, please give me a place. And Maharaj Parikshit gives those 4 places. And then Kali says, I don't see anywhere where these 4 activities. Okay, stay in world, right? And that way. But still, Kali could not spread this. Text number 6.
Yasmin ahani yaryeva bhagavan utsasarjagam tadaiva vehanuvrito sav adharma prabhava kalihi.
The very day and moment the personality of God, Lord Sri Krishna, left this earth, the personality of Kali, who promotes all kinds of irreligious activities, came into this world.
So Krishna swadhama pagate dharma jnana visa. So as soon as Krishna left, dharma and jnana also leave, right? So the very day and moment that Krishna actually left, right? Yasmin ahani yare, at that very moment, right? Then what happened? Kali, actually, who promotes all adharma, the word here, adharma, irreligion, Prabha accelerating, who promotes all kinds, he actually came to the world. Right? So Prabhupada in this purport, he makes a very excellent point that as long as there is an influence of Krishna, that cannot be an influence of Kali. As soon as Krishna leaves, then influence of Kali or Maya actually takes over. Right? So there's a verse actually says, Krishna bhuliya jiva bhogavancha kare nikate maya tare jhapotiya dhare. As soon as we Krishna bhuliya jiva, as soon as we are forgetful of Krishna, then what happens? Immediately Maya jhapotiya, she grabs us. She grabs us. And it is very immediate. Like, okay, we are forgetful of Krishna and Maya has an opportunity to take us away. But the point is, how can we always be connected with Krishna? The Prabhupada and the purport actually makes this point. If there is an arrangement of constant chanting of the holy names, qualities of Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no chance at all for the personality of Kali to. Right? So how can we actually overcome this influence of Kali, influence of quarrel, influence of ego, lust, anger, greed? By constant chanting of Krishna. Right? Constant chanting. So if we actually always keep Krishna in the center of our life, then we will not be influenced by Kali. But as soon as Krishna, we are forgetful, then Maya has the opportunity to Jhapatiya. She'll grab us and take her under her domain and say, okay, now you become my servant. And I'll kick you again and again, but still you have to remain my servant. Right? That's what Maya does. And Prabhupada in the purport, he actually talks about how this entire world can be saved from influence of Kali. And he actually says, just there's great advancement in material science, and they have invented the radio to distribute sound in the air. So instead of the radios playing all these mundane music, let them all propagate the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And if this, and one way we see that's the power of technology, right? Like now, even like radio you talk about, but now you can talk of like social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, all these things. And how many people can you reach through this electronic media, this social medias? It's tremendous. Like you post someone in India posts something on Facebook, and all over, like so many his friends of friends, and then friends of friends, everyone actually sees that. That's the power of the media. Right? So this is a very practical point for us as devotees. That how can we conquer Kali? We can actually make use of this material advancement, great advancement of material science, and propagate the glories of Krishna, propagate Harikatha. And by that propagation of Harikatha all around the world, then Kali will not have any friends. And frankly to speak, like there is so much to be done on the electronic media. Like if you just search Bhakti Yoga on Google or chanting of Hare Krishna, like where are we? Where are we? Like our influence should be everywhere. As soon as people search, they see, oh yeah, Hare Krishna Mahamantra chanting is going on. That is the mantra for the sake. So much work to be done. Right? So Prabhupada actually says, a favorable condition will be created and principles of religion in the world will be re-established if the distribution of the transcendental sound is done all over the world. And Prabhupada goes ahead and says that actually the government should actually take up this duty, and in all news, instead of propagating all this false news, they should just propagate the holy name of Krishna and Harikatha. And then the whole world will be free from the influence of Kali. Okay. Now text number 7.
Nanu dveshti kalim samrat saranga iva sarabhuk kushalan yashu siddhyanti nitarani kritani yat. Maharaj Parikshit was a realist, like the bees who only accept the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali.
Very nice. So till now, we have read 2 reasons why Maharaj Parikshit did not kill Kali. Who can unmute and say those 2 reasons? And this verse is giving the 3rd reason.
Because he's fully surrendered and
So first is he actually surrendered unto Maharaj Parikshit. So he being a Kshatriya, he accepts the surrender. What to talk of Maharaj Parikshit is actually a devotee. So he did not kill. Second point.
He doesn't want to interfere in that course of time.
Okay, that point we read previously, but in previous chapter there's one more point actually. That also is valid, but one more point.
Because to kill a surrendered soul is adharma, and the whole principle is going on is to establish dharma.
Yes, the whole point was to establish dharma. So if he himself, as being the king, does an act of adharma, then that will be contrary to the whole point of establishment. Now, the 3rd reason is given here. Na dveshti. Dveshti means envy, right? So Maharaj Parikshit was not envious of Kali. Right? Why? Because he was Saramaga. Saramaga means he is a realist, like the bees, or Sarabhuka, one who actually only sees the essence. So in spite of all the bad things in Kali, like we read previously, as soon as Kali's influence is there, then all the bad qualities like greed, envy, lust, anger, they are all like servants of Kali. So wherever Kali comes, all these qualities come with Kali. Right? But Maharaj Parikshit, in spite of all those disqualifications of Kali, irreligious acts of Kali, he could see only the essence. Right? And that is the mood of a devotee. In spite of all the wrongs, he actually sees what is the essence, what is the good quality. Right? And this we see in Prabhupada also, right? Like in spite of, so many people, like the people who used to come to Prabhupada, we, at that time, like, illicit sex, drugs, all those things, and so many disqualifications. But Prabhupada just saw the good quality. And then what did he do? He fanned the spark. Right? How we say, fan the spark. Like Vaisheshika Prabhu also has a whole website, fan the spark. In spite of all disqualification, one spark is there, fan the spark. Right? So he sees the good quality. That is the nature of a guru. Now, what is the good quality in Kali? Right? So, Sarabhuk means one who accepts the essence of everything. Now, the good quality, lines 3 and 4 actually say, Kushalani ashu siddhanti, okay, na itarani kritani here. Right? So, Kushalani referring to auspicious acts. Right? So, if someone, so the point is actually said that he knew perfectly auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So what does this mean? Is actually this in the previous ages, the system was that even if someone thinks something bad, you will get a reaction right away. I mean, you will get a reaction to it. Even a negative thought, you will get a reaction for it. But in Kali Yuga, Prabhupada actually makes the point, because it is such an awkward position, everywhere there are so many disqualifications. So, so even the laws of karma, right? Dharmaraj, he actually sees that, oh, so many disqualifications. I should do something for the people of Kali Yuga. They are like so degraded. Said, okay, if you think something wrong, I will not give you sinful reaction. But that certainly does not encourage us to cultivate negative thoughts, because the negative thoughts, if we cultivate, then that actually will become an action. But if because of previous conditioning, there is just a negative thought in our mind, then there is no reaction given by the law of karma to us. In the previous ages, you think something negative, a reaction. It is written, Chitragupta will write it down, oh, he thought this negative, and hence this is a sinful reaction. Right? And then, so that is one thing. And the other thing is kushalani. So even in your mind, if you think of something nice, you are already getting the benefit. You're getting the benefit of doing that activity. So how in when Lord Krishna was born, then Vasudeva, he was like so happy that, oh, finally Krishna is born. And in his mind, he donated 10,000 cows in charity. And then later on, when he actually came out of the prison, because right now in the prison, how could he do it? So in his mind, he did it. Right? But later on, when he came out, he actually did it. But the point that he thought about it, now in Kali Yuga, if you just think about that activity, you actually get the results for it. That is benediction of Kali. So Maharaj Parikshit saw this good quality in Kali, and he said, because he seeks the essence, he did not kill Kali. Right? And further, Prabhupada actually makes that point how in 12th canto, this verse comes, Kalera dosha nidhe rajan hasti ekad mahadguna kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangha paramveja. Kalera dosha nidhe rajan. Kali is actually filled with thousands of faults, right? Hasti ekad mahadguna, but there is one great benediction in the age of Kali. What is that? Kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangha paramveja. By engaging in kirtan and to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can actually attain the highest perfection. So Prabhupada mentions that quality in the purport, right? Just by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can actually attain the highest perfection. So because of these points, Maharaj Parikshit was not envious of Kali. And Prabhupada says, it is for this advantage that great sages sometimes wish all good for the age of Kali. Right? Because there's a special benediction. Just by chanting Hare Krishna, you can actually attain a perfection which is even beyond that of attained through fire sacrifice or temple worship or meditation. Text number 8.
Kim nu baleshu shurena kalina dhira bhiruna apramata pramateshu yorikshon nrishu vartate.
Maharaja Parikshit considered that less intelligent men might find the personality of Kali to be very powerful, but that those who are self-controlled would have nothing to fear. The king was powerful like a tiger and took care for the foolish, careless persons.
Right. So here it's actually one more point in the previous purport. I missed on that. Is Prabhupada says another advantage of Kali Yuga is he actually quotes as Sadhyo Riddhi Avaruddhe Akbar Prithibi Shushrubi Tachana 1.1.2. He says the another benediction of Kali Yuga is that just by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, relishing Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord can be arrested in our heart. Prabhupada says arrested. In 1.1.2, it actually says captured, right? Captured. But here Prabhupada uses the word arrested. Just by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, by relishing Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord will be arrested in the court of God. Okay. Now, in text number 8, it says, Kim no baleshu. Baleshu means those who are actually less intelligent. And then it uses the word, pramateshu. Pramateshu means careless. Right? So it's actually almost like opposite words are actually used. That Maharaj Parikshit was thinking that those who are less intelligent, they will find Kali to be very powerful. And those who are baleshu, they'll find Kali to be very, very powerful. But those who are self-controlled, the opposite, right? Self-control, the word is dhira. Instead of baleshu, opposite is dhira. So those who are dhira, they will not be afraid of Kali. And then it's described that how the king was powerful like a tiger and he took care for the foolish, careless person. Right? So particularly another quality of Maharaj Parikshit, that he knew that those who are weak, those who are less intelligent, then Kali can easily conquer over them. So while he was ruling, he was very careful that those who are less intelligent, those who are careless, then he used to give special attention to them to make sure that they are not influenced by Kali Yuga. So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually says that devotees of the Lord are not careless, or those who are not devotees of the Lord are careless and unintelligent. Right? So particularly for devotees of the Lord, it actually means that we have to be very careful. We have to be very intelligent by studying these shastras, and we have to be very careful of the influence of Maya. Like, how the famous statement that Prabhupada said that the problem with my disciples is we are not sufficiently afraid of Maya, right? We are careless. We take it lightly. It's okay, I'll do this, what is that? Then I'll come and chant 16 rounds. It's all okay. But just that mentality is actually could be a result of a fall down. So we have to be so careful, right? That's why the word there is actually used. It says pramateshu and apramata. Apramata means those who are actually careful, who are always cautious of the influence of Kali, of the influence of Maya. And always, like in previous chapter, we read how the devotees, that verse actually, one of the verses in previous chapter, they are so careful to actually stay away from anything that will actually disturb them from the principles of austerity, mercy, truthfulness, actually. Okay, so I'll stop at this point. So up to this point, he has summarized the activities of of Parikshit Maharaj. Right, so he's talked about his birth. He's talked about how he was surrendered to the Supreme Personality of God, and because of surrender, even though he was wrongfully cursed, he was actually fearless. Right, he was not overwhelmed. Right, then actually talked about how he had the higher taste of Krishna consciousness, and hence he could easily give up everything. Right. And then those who are actually always absorbed in Krishna Katha, then they do not have a risk even at the time of death of forgetting Krishna, right? And then we read how when he was an emperor, how he actually dealt with Kali. As long as he was an emperor, Kali could not flourish, right? And then he actually saw the good quality in Kali. He was an essence seeker. And then those who are less intelligent, those are easily disturbed, he gave special attention to them. Right? So in one way, up to this point, he summarized the entire activities of Parikshit. Okay. So any comments or any realizations of this point?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I really like the point that in the age of Kali, a living entity can be rewarded by the results of the past act simply by thinking about them, if we can't do that. And I also like the point you just said that we should be very careful about Maya. Don't take it lightly.
So, that's like there should be an incentive to actually cultivate all good thoughts. If we can practically do it, we practically do those activities. But in case we are not in a position to do it, like, on our birthdays, we can get up in the morning. We can say, today I'm donating 10,000 cows to all the Brahmanas. You can actually do that, and you can actually, in your mind, actually, sincerely do it. Krishna, I'm going to do that. I don't have any cows, but I have this desire to donate. And then practically what we can do, we do to that extent. But we can do so much more with our mind, right? And we can benefit from all those in Kali Yuga. Any other points?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah.
I like the point where one who's constantly engaged in the remembrance of the lotus feet of the Lord, at the last moment, he will not have any misconception.
The best example for this is our dear Srila Prabhupada. You see, at the time of his death, finally you see those videos, he's lying on that bed. Even now in Vrindavan, you can see that bed, which is actually a very special place. And in that, even though his body, everything is like physically, he's just like, basically how Prabhupada said, just like bones, just bones. So physically, he could not move his, everything was so limited, but his consciousness was so clear, and he's actually dictating the purports of the 10th canto of the Srimad. Who can have that kind of clear consciousness at the time of death? when it is said that death is actually the most painful experience. Kapha with the vayu, everything is choking our throat. Very difficult situation. But what is Prabhupada? Is dictating the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam. How glorious is that? So imagine that Prabhupada actually showed us how to, the best example of how to live our life and also how to leave the world. He showed us the example of how to actually live. But we can live in the perfect way only if our entire life is dedicated to hearing and preaching the message of Krishna. Okay. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I like the point how the unconquerable Lord Ajita becomes conquerable if we dedicate our mind, body, and words to the Supreme Lord always.
Yeah, that verse is actually saying because Maharaj Parikshit, he took that humble position and then did this three things: dedicated word, body, and mind to service. He actually conquered the one who is Ajita. He actually understood the one who is ununderstandable, beyond our words and our mind. Anything else?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Mataji.
The point that stood out to me was how Parikshit was protecting those who were easily influenced by Kali, who are weak. And I was thinking, like, if we stay under the shelter of pure devotee, then like they'll take care of us. So like that's all we have to do is just stay under their protection, because they'll make sure to take care of us.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I like definitely the Achyuta aspect of Krishna, that he never fails to protect his devotees and he'll break the laws. That part I like even more. And also Ante Narayana Smriti, that is the perfection of life. That's so.
Thank you. Okay, so let's proceed. So text 9 and 10 is further. Sutta Goswami is like, he's summarized Parikshit Maharaj's life. Now he's going to kind of conclude that section. And from 11 onwards, Sonakadi Rishi is going to speak. Okay, so let's continue. Text 9.
Upavarnitam etadva punyam parikshitam maya vasudeva katopetam akyanam yad aprichyata.
Translation. O sages, as you did ask me, now I have described almost everything regarding the narrations about Lord Krishna in connection with the history of the pious Maharaja Parikshit.
So, as you did ask, yad aprichyata. So, where did they ask? Well, they asked in starting of chapter 4. Then they asked again in starting of chapter 12. And in the previous chapter, they actually asked that why did Maharaj Parikshit only punish Kali and not kill Kali? So now, Sutta Goswami is saying, Upavarnitam. If you see word to word, almost everything, whatever you ask, almost everything I have described to you. Right? And then another thing which is very nice, Punyam Parikshitam Maya. Right? Everything, all these glorification of Parikshit Maharaj is very punyam, very virtuous. Which is the other verse which actually says that hearing this message itself is punya.
Shrinvatam Sakatha Krishna Punya.
Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtan. Right? Punya. So here, Sutta Goswami is saying, as hearing about Krishna is actually punya, hearing about the devotees of Krishna is also punya. So that is the point Prabhupada focuses on in the purport. And he says, even hearing the glorification and the life of the devotees of Krishna is also transcendental. And one gets the same result as hearing about Krishna. Right? So, punya parikshitam maya. So Prabhupada's purport is focusing on that point. That devotee, hearing about devotees of Krishna, hearing about the Lord Krishna, both of them are transcendental. And then Vasudeva Kathopetam. So previously in the last chapter, they actually, when Shonakadi Rishi were asking Sutta Goswami that why did Maharaj Parikshit only punish Kali and not kill Kali, they actually said, okay, please narrate this if it is Yadi Krishna Kathashra. You remember this from the previous chapter? If it is just based on moral principles, we are not interested. But if it is in connection with Krishna, then please describe. So now Sutta Goswami is saying, yes, in connection with Krishna, I have described everything whatever you have. Okay. Okay. And we see Bhagavatam is just glorification of Krishna and glorification of devotees of Krishna. That's what is the entire Bhagavatam. And actually Bhagavatam focuses more on devotees than on Krishna. Right? And that is the real unique character of the Bhagavatam, that by actually hearing about devotees of Krishna, we actually get the mercy of Krishna. Right? So we get the bhakti from them. Right? Krishna does not give bhakti, but devotees give bhakti. So we meditate on the devotees. Okay, text 10.
Ya ya kata bhagavata kataniyo rukarmanaha guna karma shraya pumbhi samsevyasta bhabhushibihi.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dharma. Translation: those who are desirous of achieving complete perfection in life must submissively hear all topics that are connected with the transcendental activities and the qualities of the personality of Godhead, who acts wonderfully. Hare Krishna.
So now he's concluding this section. So one way they've asked a question, he said, like, whatever you asked, I have described to you. Right? And now he's saying that one must hear those who are bubushubihi. The last word says bubushubihi. Those who desire their own welfare. If you want your welfare in life, then what you should do? One must hear. Right? Prabhupada says, must submissively hear all topics that are connected with Krishna. Right? So it actually says Bhagavata Kathaniya. Right? Urukrama. Urukrama means one whose activities are very wonderful. Right? And then it says Guna Karma Ashraya. So yeah, Urukrama means one who acts wonderfully and whose qualities and activities are all so wonderful. And then Pumbi, some sevaya bhugushi, one who is actually desiring their own welfare, some sevaya. Some sevaya means one should do service to these messages. And how do you serve these narrations of Krishna? By giving our complete attention to them. We serve these messages of Krishna. We serve the message of Srimad Bhagavatam by giving our complete attention. So one must submissively serve if you're designing. And Prabhupada and purport talks about like systematic hearing. If you remember previously, we had read this point. What does it mean to systematically study the transcendental qualities and activities of the Lord? Anyone remember?
With rapt attention.
With rapt attention, that is one. And one more point was there, Prabhupada said. That one should systematically go through a section of Bhagavatam, not haphazardly jump
from
to the 10th
yes,
canto.
from the first canto to the 10th.
So systematic hearing, Prabhupada talks about that point. And he says, and if we actually do that, then tattvataha, in truth, we can actually understand. So Prabhupada is referring to Janma Karma Chame Divyam. They are all Divyam, they are all transcendental. Evam Yoveti Tattvataha. In truth, you can actually understand Krishna. And Prabhupada says this is the prescribed remedy for counteracting the process of birth, death, old age, and disease. So last time we discussed this verse also, Bhavoshadi. What is Bhava Oshadi? The medicine for this age of for this material existence is what? It's actually Nivrita Tashay Upagiya Manad. Right? One should actually hear, give attention to the messages of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And when you talk of remedy, more to say, but you know how the example that Rupa Goswami gives in a nectar of instruction, where it says Sat Krishna Nama Charitadi Stapya Vidya Pito Patapa Rasanasya Rochikana. It says, like, you know, our condition right now is we are like in jaundice state. Jaundice state. That these messages may not appear so sweet. But the solution to a jaundice patient, you should just regularly eat sugar. Regular, because sugar itself tastes bitter, but the solution is regularly eat sugar. So regularly, by nourishing these topics of Bhagavatam, one can actually get cured from the disease of birth, death, old age, and disease, and attain the perfectional stage of life. Okay. Next verse. Okay, so now up to this point, Sutta Goswami has spoken. Now the rishis are going to start speaking. So Shaunak Adi Rishi. So it's a Rishaya Uchu. So Shaunak Adi Rishi. Let's go ahead.
11. Rishaya Uchu Sutta Jiva Sama Somya Shashvatir Vishadam Vishaha Yastam Sasi Krishnasya Martyanam Amritam Hinaha.
Translation. Oh, go ahead, Mataji.
Go ahead.
Yes, so the good sages said, O grave Sut Goswami, may you live many years and have eternal friends. For you are speaking very nicely about the activities of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This is just like nectar for mortal beings like us.
Thank you, Guru. So here it says, Rishaya Uchu. So good sages said. So basically, Sonakadi rishis are now saying, because now it appears that Sutta Goswami said, okay, everything what you asked, this I described. Now over, right? Bhagavatam is over. But sages are saying, no, not yet. We want to hear more, right? So they're expressing. So, O good sages, the good sages said, O grave Sutta Goswami, may you live a very long life. Jiva Samaha. You live a long life. Why? Sarvatita Yasha. And let your eternal fame spread all over. Right? Because Shamsasi Krishna, you're speaking so nicely about Lord Krishna that for those who are martyr, who they are going to die, this is actually Amritam. This is the real nectar. Because you're speaking Krishna Katha so nicely, may you have a long life and may you have eternal fame, O Sutta Goswami. So you can see how the relationship between Sonakadi Rishi, Sutta Goswami is speaking, and they are saying, oh, Sutta Goswami is so wonderful. Please don't stop. We are actually martyr. We are actually ones who are going to die. But you are actually giving us Amrita. You are making us immortal. And how are they making us immortal? In the previous chapter, we read that. Who remembers?
Yamadharmaraj, calling by Yamadharmaraj.
Yes, exactly, because Yamaraj is right here in the assembly. So Yamaraj is in the assembly. He is invited to hear this Krishna Katha. So though we are martyr, right, we'll become Amritam. So you are actually converting those who are martyr into those who are Amritam. And this is true even for us. By relishing these topics of Bhagavatam, as we read in the second canto also, Ayur Harati Vaipumsham, right? Those who are wasting their life, like both the rising and the setting of the sun is taking the life of everyone who is not absorbing Krishna Katha. But those who are relishing these topics of Krishna Katha, this is our eternal duty. That's what we are supposed to do. So for them, this is like eternal life, right? We can just continuously hearing Hari Katha and that's it. We are immortal in that way. Right? So, right. So that's how Sonakadi Rishi, they're saying Sutta Goswami. And then Prabhupada in purport, he actually says that these topics, they are accentuated by the spiritual energy of the Lord. These topics are directly filled with spiritual energy of the Lord. Right? So we read previously, right? Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishoka apadya vatami. Tadvag visargo. This is a totally different creation. Right? These words are not of these material world. This is actually a totally different creation. Yasmin prati shloka, every shloka, every word is a power to create a revolution in the life of the mysterious civilization. This is that creation, right? So Prabhupada focuses on that. So every word of this is accentuated, Prabhupada uses the word, by spiritual energy. It is actually filled with spiritual energy. There's another very beautiful verse. I'll quickly share. That's my screen. This is Canto 4, chapter 20, text 25. Okay, you can see my screen. Okay. So here, so this verse is so beautiful. My dear Lord, you are glorified by selected verses uttered by great personality. Sa Uttama Shloka Mahan Mukhachato. Such, again, the word Vachita is here. Such glorification of your lotus feet is just like saffron particles. When the transcendental vibration from the mouths of the great devotees carries the aroma of the saffron dust of your lotus feet, the forgetful living entity gradually remembers the eternal relationship with you. Devotees thus gradually come to the right conclusion about the value of life. My dear Lord, I therefore do not need any other benediction but the opportunity to hear from the mouth of your pure devotee. The highest benediction, in this section, Prithu Maharaj is asking, the highest benediction is I want to always have the opportunity to hear Hari Katha from the mouth of your devotee. And that's why, this point comes later also, but I'll mention it now. That's why, like if you see Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, they are seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead in front of them, and they are asking, we want the benediction, please give us the association of your devotees. Association. Because in that association, they'll get an opportunity to hear Hari Katha from the pure devotee. And then, what does this Hari Katha have? Such glorification of your lotus feet is just like saffron, dust particles from your lotus feet. Right? The Prabhupada in purport does a nice point. Right? A pure devotee always engages in the service of the Lord, taking shelter of his lotus feet. And therefore, he has direct connection with the saffron mercy particles that are strewn over the lotus feet of the Lord. Although when a pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice may resemble the sound of this material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. So words of a pure devotee, it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. And as soon as a sleeping living entity hears the powerful voice emanating from the mouth of a pure devotee, he immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord, although up until that moment he had forgotten everything. Right? So what is this Hari Katha? The pure devotees, because they have connection with the saffron mercy particles which are actually connected to the lotus feet of the Lord, by hearing this Hari Katha, that saffron dust particle is actually entering into the ears, into our consciousness. And because we are coming directly in contact with Krishna's lotus feet, we remember, oh, this is my original relationship with Krishna. This is who I am. This is my service to Krishna. Right? So hence this Prabhupada actually says, this is Divyam. This is a totally different creation. And hence Saunakadi Rishi is saying, Suta Goswami, you are giving us that saffron mercy particles from the dust of lotus feet of Krishna. May you live a long life and may you continue speaking this Hari Katha. This is the real nectar. Okay. Next, number 12.
Karmanyasmin anash vase dhuma dhumratmanam bhavan apayayati govinda pada padmasavam madhu.
Hare Krishna. We have just begun the performance of this putative activity, a sacrificial fire, without certainty of its result due to the many imperfections in our action. Our bodies have become black from the smoke, but we are factually pleased by the nectar of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, Govinda, which you are distributing. Hare Krishna.
So now you remember in the first chapter of the first canto? First chapter of this canto, what the sages actually, Saunakadi Rishi, they sat to perform 1,000-year sacrifice, right? And then Suta Goswami comes, right? And then they actually glorify Suta Goswami, and then the conversation starts. So here they are saying that we sat to do this 1,000-year sacrifice, but the only thing that we are getting from the sacrifice is Dhuma Dhumra Atmano. Dhuma means smoke. The smoke is just covering our body and mind, and we are becoming black and black. That's what is happening from the sacrifice. We are just becoming black from the smoke of this sacrifice. Right? That's what is happening. And also, we are not sure of the results. Because when you do this sacrifice, even if there is a slight mistake, then no result. Like how we read in Kumbhakaran, right? He actually performed this long austerity. And then finally, when the time came for asking for the benediction, Saraswati actually entered his mouth and changed a word. Instead of asking for Indra, like in the sense that he wanted the place, the heavenly planet Indra, he asked for Nidra. Instead of Indra, he asked for Indra. Instead of IN, it became NI. INDRA, instead of INDRA, it became NIDRA. And that's you got the benediction of sleeping. And similarly, we see in sixth canto, that is, sixth canto, Twashta, there's this, it comes in the story of Chitraketu and Vritrasura, that he's performing the sacrifice and he's asking, I need a son who can kill Indra. Right? But he makes a mistake in that pronunciation. And instead of getting a son who will kill Indra, he gets a son who is killed by Indra. So these sacrifices, you have to be so perfect that one deviation, you may get the opposite result. So here the sages are like, we are doing this 1,000-year sacrifice, only black. Our face is becoming black and black and black. And we are not sure whether we'll get the result or not. Because you have to do it so perfectly, and you can say one mantra wrong and then opposite result. So no perfection. But on the other hand, what you are giving us, right? We are factually pleased by the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord which you are distributing. On the other hand, what you are doing, you are speaking this Hari Katha, right? And it is giving us so much pleasure that we are not even concerned of the result because we are experiencing the result right now. You see the thing in bhakti, it's not so much that, okay, when we complete the sacrifice, we'll get the result. The result is right here because they are relishing the Hari Katha so much that they are actually tasting bhakti even right now. So on one hand, we don't know what is the end result because there could be so much imperfection. On this side, we are actually getting the end result right now because there's so much nectar in your Hari Katha. So in that way, they compare the sacrifice versus hearing Hari Katha. And that's basically in Kali Yuga. Prabhupada points out the scarcity of expert brahmanas. There is so much discrepancy in sacrifices. Even little bit discrepancy, everything is spoiled. And the brahmanas themselves are greedy. And hence we can see Prabhupada, where he would conclude this purport. Hence, the only sacrifice that is recommended for this age is congregational chanting of the holy name Krishna. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevana, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva. Right? Okay. So, Prabhupada in the purport also, Prabhupada in the purport, he quotes one other verse from the 11th canto of Bhagavatam. He talks about Bhakti Pareshanubhava Viraktir Anyata Chaishat Reka Ekakala Prapadyamanasya Yatasnasyus Tushti Pushti Shud Apayo Nukasa. He actually says that when a person is hungry and if he eats food, right, three things happen. Right? I've given this example before also. What are the three things? One is our hunger goes away. Second thing, our body gets nourished. Third thing, we experience the taste. We are tasting, oh, so sweet gulab jamun. So wonderful, right? We're tasting it right away. Similarly, bhakti is like that. As soon as someone takes the path of bhakti, he experiences these three. He experiences the nectar of bhakti right away. One does not have to say that only when I reach the state of bhav and prem, I'll release the nectar. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, even in the stage of sadhana, one can experience the final stage of the final result. Even in the beginning stage, we relish that, we get that taste, right? Then our hunger goes away, like all our anxieties of this material world go away, material miseries are vanquished, and then our body is nourished. We get that spiritual strength. Right? Actually, that Jiva Goswami says that we get a direct experience of Krishna, even in the beginning stage. Right? So Prabhupada quotes about that. One can feel the result of eating food. So that is the first one. Okay, so text 13.
Tulayamalavena pina svargam na punarbhavam bhagavat sangi sangasya martyanam kim utashishaha.
Hare Krishna translation. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter. And what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are of those who are meant for death.
So this is a famous verse for memorization, there in Bhagavad Ratnamala. Tulayam lavenapi na swargam na punarbhavam bhagavad sangi sangasya martyanam kim utashishaha. So this verse is very beautiful verse. So Tula, what is a Tula? a balance, right? So those who are writing notes, you can draw a balance. Weighing balance. One side you have this, one side they put weights, and one side they put sugar or whatever you're buying, right? So weighing balance, right? So on one side of the weighing balance, there is the attainment of heavenly planets, which is actually the end result of Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda, you do all the yajnas so that you can go to the heavenly planet. You put the heavenly planets there, attainment of Swargalok. Plus, you put the liberation, which is the end result of Jnana process. Right? You get liberation, moksha. Right? So you put that on one side. Right? And on the other side, so one balance is heavenly planets and liberation. Other side, you put only one moment. Lavenapi, lava matra, right? Lava matra sadhu sangha. Sadhu sangha, sarva shastra kare, lava matra sadhu sangha. So lavenapi, just love matra, one drop of association with a devotee, right? And your weighing balance is going to break. Your weighing balance is going to break because there is no comparison. You cannot even weigh. So he's saying, yes, there is a tula, there's a weighing balance. You put the result of attaining Swarga Loka, liberation on one side, and other side, a moment association with you. And there is no comparison. Like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, it is almost like you keep Mount Meru on one side and you keep a mustard seed on the other side. Is there any comparison? No. Mount Everest on one side and one mustard seed on the other side. There is no comparison. That is how the glory of association for devotee. So now the Sonakadi Rishi is saying that what Suta Goswami you are giving us, that moment of association is so precious that everything else, there is no comparison to the perfection of Swargaloka, liberation, everything. There is no comparison. And what to talk about material benedictions, which are actually meant for people who are going to die. What to talk about, like, oh, good wife, good husband, good business, all these things. There's no comparison at all. You're talking heavenly plans and liberation, there's no comparison. What to talk of that? So this is the power of association with a devotee. A moment's association is actually, can give us lava matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. You can get the highest perfection. Why? Because in that moment's association with devotee, we can get that sprout of bhakti. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, in a moment association, we can get that sprout of bhakti. Right? The bhakti seed, the sprout of bhakti. Right? And okay. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he actually, and Prabhupada also in the purpose, he elaborates so nicely. He says that here we are talking of a moment of association. But one may say that the love matra sadhu sangha, that comparison, is only for the pure devotees. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is rejecting that. He's saying even a moment association with the sadhaka, there is no comparison with heavenly planets or liberation. Even with the sadhaka, what to talk of those who are stage at bhav, and what to talk of those who are at the stage of prema. Even a sadhaka association, those who are engaged in sadhana bhakti, even that association is beyond all this. And then there's one more wonderful point. So Prabhupada in the purpose, he says, Yoshit Sangi and Bhagavad Sangi. Yoshit Sangi means those who are associating with not the woman as such, but those who are attached to women. Like for men, those who are attached to women, that is Yoshit Sangi. And on the other hand is Bhagavad Sangi, association with. Now, the very beautiful point. So please pay attention. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he actually quotes a verse from, this is from 3rd canto, and he makes a point. He says, actually, the association of those people who are attached to women or bad habits, that is worse than the association with the woman. You see the point? Like, if someone is attached to a person who has lusty after women, that association is worse than direct association with a woman. Why? Because in that association, that desires are planted in the heart. The desires of lust that person has will actually come into our heart. So association with a womanizer is actually worse than the association with a woman. Similarly, association of devotees who are in love with Krishna is actually more powerful than even association with Krishna. So he's flipped that whole thing and said association with the devotees of Krishna is actually more powerful than association even with Krishna. Right? And that's why I was making that point. That, Dhruva Maharaj, he sees Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj, he's seeing Krishna. Right? Prithu Maharaj, he's seeing Krishna. In front of Krishna, they're asking, please give us the benediction of association of your devotees. Because in that association of devotees, you can actually really relish Krishna even more than direct association with Krishna. You can serve Krishna even more than direct association with Krishna. A very beautiful point. So association of the devotees of Krishna is even more powerful than association with Krishna. Just like association with a womanizer is worse than the association with the woman. Right? So very nice, beautiful verse. Okay, so text number 14.
At 14. Konama tripye rasavitkatayam mahatamaikanta parayanasya nantam gunanam magunasya jagmur yogeshwaraye bhava paramugya.
Hare Krishna. The personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, Govinda, is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings, and his transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such masters of mystic powers as Lord Shiva and Brahma. Can anyone who is expert in relishing nectar, rasa, ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about him?
Okay. So it's 8:50. So should we take a quick break and continue? Next section. I mean, like, this is a continuation of the section, but it's just like the verses get so beautiful that we're going to go a little slow and focus on these verses. So I'm hoping at least we covered till 23, and then next time we can start the story. So, okay, so we'll take a quick break, but any points after this in the second section from text number 9 all the way till text 13?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I like that. In bhakti, even if we don't know the end result, we are getting the result right now. We are getting the nectar right now.
Yes. Kevala Ananda Kanda, right? Right now we are having such wonderful association. We are enjoying in the kirtans. We are having nice prasadam. What more do we want? So the result is right now.
I like the point of the Tulya Lavena. On one hand, heavenly planets and liberation, and the other hand, in one moment of association with the devotee.
Very nice point. So we can consider that even that heavenly planets is totally material, but even liberation without devotion, it is also material. That's what Prabhupada says in the purpose. That's also material, but on this side, completely spiritual. This is totally different spiritual reality. No comparison. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Association with the womanizer is worse than association with the, like the actual association with a woman. Similarly, association with a pure devotee of Krishna is much better than even association with Krishna.
More powerful than association directly with Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I like the point. On that note, same note, even association with the sadhaka in sadhana bhakti, now you don't even have to go up to the pure devotee. Still, it is uncomparable with the other benefits what we get. So I really like that point, Prabhuji.
Even association with the sadhaka is so powerful. What to talk of those who are in bhav and prem? Then it is so much more elevated, right? So much more. The pure devotees, then their association is so much more powerful. But even sadhaka cannot be compared to Swargaloka, liberation, or anything. Even that association.
Well, bro, I was also thinking the same point of like how in liberation also, sometimes we have devotees, there are people who attain liberation, Brahmajyoti, but then once Narad Muni crosses and they come in touch with the devotee, with Narad Muni, and they come to the earth to again become pure devotees. So in that, right, like it's like 1 million millions of years later, probably one spark will be in touch with Narad Muni for one fraction of the second, and that's it.
That's it.
How powerful.
And we can just consider how many lifetimes we have in this material world. We don't even know. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Anadi karma phale. How long we have been in this karma phale? We don't know. And then, now we are somehow fortunate we have come in contact with the pure devotee like Prabhupada and his glorious disciples. How wonderful is that? Is that a question, Mataji, on the group? What example?
The comparison was very weird, Prabhu, to like how womanize and Krishna's devotees. Like,
it's like, okay. So let's take it's opposite, but the point is like, this association is worse than this. This association is more powerful than this. It is a contrast, but yes. Okay, so let's take a quick break and we'll continue. The verses are very, very beautiful in this section. So up to 23, we'll try to. So please come back in 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Everyone together, a little louder. Everybody, stop one time, a little louder. One more time, a little louder with your heart. One more time, very loudly. Mean it.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. So let's continue. I'll just read the last sentence of text 13. We'll start with text 14. So in the purport, Prabhupada says last sentence that such association is always desirable. It is worshipable, it is praiseworthy, and one may accept it as the highest goal of life. The highest goal of life is that association with the pure devotees. Right? So even Krishna is actually, one day Krishna blesses us and he comes in front of us, and we offer prayers to Krishna, what we are reading in Bhagavatam. And then we pray, Krishna, please always keep me in the association with devotees. That's what is our highest goal. Right? It is worshipable, it is praiseworthy, one accepts it as the highest goal. Okay. So text 14, we read the Sanskrit and translation. So in text 14, now Sonakadi Rishi is actually saying that, because they want to hear more. So they are making the point that who can be satiated by hearing this Harikatha? Particularly, they use the word, can anyone who is expert in relishing rasa, right? So the word there is rasavit. So rasavit means one who is expert in relishing the nectar of Krishna Katha. If someone has that taste, so actually Sonakadi Rishi is saying that we actually got the taste now. And once you have the taste for relishing Krishna Katha, you can never be satisfied by hearing Krishna Katha. In the sense that the more you hear, the more you want to hear. The more you hear, the more you want to hear. And that's what you always want to do. But you have to be rasavit for that. Rasavit. And Sonakadi Rishi is saying that you have made us rasavit. We have the taste. So now you cannot stop. Please don't stop. Please continue. Right? So who can be satisfied hearing this Krishna Katha? Right? And then further, they actually say Krishna, and then they are glorifying Krishna, right? Hearing topics about Krishna. And this Krishna he is actually, the Sanskrit is Ekanta Parayanasa. So in the second verse of this chapter, we say Narayana Parayana, right? Here it says Ekanta Parayanasya. He is the exclusive shelter for all living entities. So all living entities should hear about Krishna and become rasavit, become a relisher of the nectar of Krishna, right? Because he is the top person worth hearing. Like last time also we discussed this point. Sharanya Sharanam, right? He is the person worth taking shelter of. Why? Because he's Mukunda. He's the one who can free us from this cycle of birth and death, and who can be more merciful than this personality, Krishna. He is the exclusive shelter for all living entities. And further they say, so that's the first point. So one is Ekanta Parayanasa. And second point is Gunanam Antam, Na Antam Gunanam. There is no end to the qualities of Krishna, right? Even Bhava referring to Lord Shiva, Padma referring to Brahma, because he was born from the lotus flower, right? So even Bhava, even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, right, who are actually Yogeshwara, who are the Lord of mystic powers, they cannot actually measure the glories. And we discussed this point also, that how Sankarshan, with his unlimited mind, unlimited mouths, he's trying to just glorify Krishna, but he never comes to an end to it. So now the sages are saying that the master of all mystics, the Yogeshwara, Bhava and Padma, right? Both of them, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, they cannot measure the unlimited glories of your Supreme Personality. In the 10th canto, in the prayers of Brahma, there's a beautiful verse where Brahma says, if anyone says that they can know Krishna, let them say. But as for me, so Brahma, who is like the, with 4 heads, who is like the topmost living entity in this material world, he's saying, with my 4 heads, I can just say that I will never be able to understand your unlimited glories. Beautiful verse in 10th canto. So here, Shonagadi Rishi are saying, glories of this personality is unlimited. Even Brahma and Shiva cannot find an end. So you, because we are rasavit, we want to hear more and more, and his glories are unlimited. So you please continue speaking. So that's it. And Prabhupada in the purport says that how Brahma, he himself creates so many powerful demigods. He creates powerful demigods, right? And then Shiva, he could drink that entire poison. Both of them are so powerful, yet they cannot measure the qualities of Lord Shri Krishna, right? So this verse is pointing out the greatness of Krishna, at the same time pointing out the sweetness of Krishna. Both are there in this verse. How is that? Sweetness of Krishna, because the more you hear about Krishna, the more you want to drink the nectar of the sweetness of Krishna. Right? And the other point about the greatness is he's so great that even Brahma and Shiva cannot count his glorious quality. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is actually making the point that this verse is focusing on the greatness of Krishna and the sweetness of Krishna. Okay, and Prabhupada in the purport, he points out that how, right. So he actually makes a point that why is Krishna the exclusive shelter of all living entities? He made another point here, that everyone is actually looking for happiness. Right? Everyone, anything we do, we are looking for happiness. And that abode, the embodiment of all rasa, or the embodiment of all happiness is Krishna. Right? He's Raso Vaisaha. He's Akhila Rasamrita Murti. He's the abode of all the rasas, enjoyment together. Right? So, and every living entity is actually looking for enjoyment, and that enjoyment can be found by taking shelter of Krishna. So that's another point Prabhupada actually points out in the purport. Okay, there is no end to such transcendental discourses. And I think I told this story before. Prabhupada often mentions this story in his lectures. Right? He talks about there was this Madan Mohan Malviya, one of the politicians in India. Right? You remember the story? Okay, you can hear in Prabhupada lecture, often he quotes that he actually came to Bhakti Saraswati Thakur and he asked Bhakti Saraswati Thakur, so what are your activities? Spiritual leader, what are your activities? And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he mentioned different activities, and he said, "Oh, we do all these publications, and we have got six periodicals in 6 languages: English, Bengali, Hindi, Odia, with Assamese. We are printing all these, and also we have one newspaper that is published every day. Every day we actually have one newspaper." And then this Madan Mohan Malviya, this politician, said, "Every day you publish one newspaper? Yeah. How come you have, like, where do you get so much information on the spiritual world?" Like, to most people, even those who are connected to some kind of faith or religion, they have maybe one book, and that's it. But here, every day a new newspaper, right? And then Madan Mohan Malviya, the politician, he was surprised, like, how every day? And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually said, now, if you consider, this is just one city where we are, it's like Calcutta. And then there are so many cities in this entire India. And India is just one of the countries in the whole world. Right? So many countries, cities in this entire. Right? In this city of Calcutta, you have one morning publication, and sometimes one afternoon you have a different publication. Now we are actually writing something. So one city, one country, one world, right? So many, right? And this earth is just one planet in the entire material creation. And this entire material creation is just 1/4 of the entire spiritual creation. So if for one small city, you can have 2 publications in one day, then for that 3/4 of the entire reality in the spiritual world, why you cannot have one publication every day? Actually, you can have one publication, one spiritual news every minute, every second. But then Prabhupada actually says it. But unfortunately, there are no customers. There's so much about the spiritual world. Every second you can have, a full Bhagavatam. So much, because the spiritual world is so dynamic. So many pastimes are taking place. Every moment there is nectar. Oh, Krishna is doing this, Radharani is doing this, and Vrinda Devi is sending her messages, and so much is happening. Unlimited, unlimited. How much is there to release this nectar? So one who gets a taste, who is rasavit, who has a taste for relishing the nectar, for that person, it is just unlimited. And even practically we say that. How many books are there to read? We struggle to finish like all Prabhupada's books. So like Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, Ishopanishad, Bhagavad Gita, then all these so many books, like small books. Path of Perfection, Laws of Nature, Teachings of Lord Kapila, Teachings of Queen, so many books. And often devotees say, when will you finish all these books? But imagine, these are books given by Prabhupada. If one read and wants to go more in detail, you have books by Acharyas, you have Jeev Goswami, Sat Sandarbha, you have Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Rupa Goswami, unlimited text. Like if someone just says, okay, I'm just going to read and read and read, lifetimes and lifetimes are not enough for you to relish this nectar. And this nectar is so nice that once you read, it's not that, okay, now I've read this book and keep it away. You want to read it again and again and again. So unlimited nectar and unlimited times you want to relish. That is the nature of spiritual topics. That is the nature. And the material world, any movies, I think you see once, twice, it's like, okay, done with it. But this is a totally different creation. Unlimited, right? So who can be satisfied? But you have to be rasavit. At least a taste for relishing this rasa. So that's why 3rd verse of the 1st canto, what does it say? O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have to become that expert and thoughtful. We should have that mood of developing that rasa, right? Tasting that rasa. Then we'll relish nectar at it. Okay, text 15.
Tanno Bhavan Bhai Bhagavat Pradhano Mahatamaikanta Parayanasya Hare Rudaram Charitam Vishudham Shushrushatam no Vidanotu Vidvan. I think Vijay Mataji also, your turn got skipped, right? Vijay Mataji?
No, Mataji, I read.
You did read? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think Divya needed to turn.
O O Sutta Goswami, you are a learned and pure devotee of the Lord, because the personality of Godhead is your chief object of service. Therefore, please describe to us the pastimes of the Lord, which are above all material conceptions, for we are anxious to receive such messages.
So Prabhupada says this verse, they are actually telling the qualities of a speaker, hearer, and what is the subject matter to talk about. Right? So what is the quality of a speaker? It says Bhagavata Pradhanam. One, a speaker should be that person whose only objective in life is to actually serve the Supreme Personality of God. That is a true devotee. And that's a person who is a perfect speaker of Bhagavatam. Like even in Nectar of Devotion, it is said the qualities of one who is in Bhav is that he is avyartha kalatam. He does not even waste a single moment, not in the service of Krishna. Right? And then another quality that's described is Ashakti Stad Gunanukhyane. He is addicted to glorify Krishna's qualities. That is a nature, that is a qualification of a speaker, right? So here it says, one who is, so they are actually, Sonakadi is saying, Sutta Goswami, because you are a pure devotee of Krishna, your only object, chief object of service is the Supreme Personality. And hence, you are the perfect speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? And then what is the qualification of the hearer? They are saying, therefore, please describe us. And what is, okay, so the word there is Shushrushatam. Shushrushatam means those who are receptive. So what is the qualification of the hearer? The hearer must be anxious to hear. Like, what is next? What is going to happen next? Every verse, we are relishing the nectar. So the qualification of the hearer is you have to be receptive, you have to be eager, you have to be anxious to hear. And what is the subject matter? Please describe to us the pastimes of the Lord, who are all about material conception. So Harera, right? Harera, it describes as Charitam, Vishuddham. These qualities of the Lord are Vishuddham, they are transcendental, they are beyond this material creation. So this is a subject matter worth discussing. So qualification of a hearer, qualification of speaker, and the subject matter. So when you have the best speaker, the best hearer, and the topics of Krishna, then that is very congenial. That katha is real amrita. That can go on for eternity. Right? And Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about like how professional speakers, they do this Bhagavad Saptah. Right? In India, it's very popular. They do 7 days Bhagavad Saptah. Right? And even they do it, like Prabhupada is pointing out the faults of all these professional speakers. There is no like real devotion. The speaker is not a devotee of the Lord. They are not exclusively dedicated to the service of the Lord. Like Prabhupada says, and you can hear in Prabhupada lecture, he actually makes this point. Prabhupada says, I know this one speaker of Bhagavatam. He speaks for hours on Srimad Bhagavatam. And then after that, he goes and he smokes bidi. And he says, because my mouth is so dry from speaking from so many hours, I need to smoke bidi. Like smoke a cigarette or something like that. Prabhupada points out. This is the nature of professional speakers. So there's no bhakti there. So he's not a qualified speaker. And what is the result? Even after hearing those 7 days of Bhagavad Katha, there's no transformation in their life. They just go, the social gathering, nice food, and after they continue with their life. So what is the use of all these professional speakers? Right? So this verse is showing what are the true qualities of a speaker, hearer, and the subject matter. Okay, next 16.
Savai Mahabhagavata Parikshit Yena Pavarghakyam Adha Prabhudihi Jnanena Vayasaki Shakti Tena Bheje Khagendra Dvajapada Moolam.
O Sutta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyasa, Srila Sukadeva.
So up to this point, they have asked Sutta Goswami, please narrate more. It is so nectar. We are martya. We are people who are going to die, but you are giving us amrit. And compared to the other sacrifice, which was only making us black, this is the real nectar. So please speak about Krishna. And this is Krishna is the topic worth speaking. Even Brahma and Shiva cannot find the end to his glory. So please continue speaking, right? And then now they are going specific and saying what they really want to hear. And they are actually saying, Parikshit, particular verse says, Mahabhagavata, right? He is a first-class devotee. Maharaj Parikshit, a first-class devotee. Buddhi adabra apavarga akhyam. So his intelligence, when he was cursed, was fixed on liberation. His intelligence was fixed on liberation. But what is the knowledge that he actually got from the son of Vyasadeva, Vyasaki? What is the knowledge he got from the son of Vyasadeva, Vyasaki, by which he actually attained the Pada Moolam, the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna? Right? So they are saying that we want to hear that knowledge, that actually which Maharaj Parikshit, who was fixed, whose intelligence was fixed of liberation, finally took shelter of the Supreme Personality of that Mahabhagavata Parikshit. What did they hear from Sukadeva Goswami? And that knowledge is so wonderful that even one who is actually desiring liberation gets a taste for relishing the nectar of the holy feet of Krishna. So naturally in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how even impersonalists, when they hear this Bhagavatam, they become devotees of Krishna. They get a taste for Harikatha. What is the examples we can think of? Anyone to unmute and say?
Shukadeva Goswami.
Sukadeva Goswami himself, right? In the second canto, in first chapter, text 9, he himself said, I was actually attached to the impersonal Brahman Jyoti. But by hearing this Krishna Katha, by hearing Bhagavatam, we know the story, right? We have said a few times before also, how he went to the forest and Vyasadeva sent his own disciples to speak the verses, like Bahara Pidam Natvaram, and then Aho Bakiyam Sthanakul Kalukuta. And hearing this, he actually became a devotee of Krishna. He came back and he heard the whole Bhagavatam, right? So what is that message so powerful that it can convert a person who's fixed on Brahman realization to that of a pure devotee? That is the knowledge that we want to hear. That is the glory of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So, and then another word here is very nice. Khaga Indra. Indra means what? The king. Khaga means what? Bird. Who is the king of all birds? Garuda. Right? And then here it says, attain, so it says, Bheje Khaga Indra Dhwaja. Dhwaja means flag. Right? So Krishna's chariot has a flag. And who is on that flag? Garuda. Arjun's chariot has a flag. Who's on the flag? Hanuman. Right? So here on Krishna taking shelter, he took shelter of Krishna, on whose chariot a flag has Garuda. Or Prabhupada in per translation, he gives, attain the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda. Another meaning Prabhupada says, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of all birds. So this is the power of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada actually in the purport, he actually says that, we have examples of impersonalists who have become personalists, who have become devotees by receiving knowledge of Bhagavatam. But we never have a knowledge of a personalist ever becoming an impersonalist, right? That itself proves that personalism is higher than impersonalism. So Prabhupada makes that point. Even in the purport, he talks about the three levels of devotees, the Prakrita, Madhyam, and Uttam. Tanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam. And he talks about what are the qualities of this. We have discussed this before. I won't go more into detail, but if you like to read more, it's an 11th canto, 5th chapter, not 5th chapter. I think, sorry, I'm forgetting, 3rd chapter, I think, but text 45, 46%, where it talks about qualities of a pure devotee. Right? So Prabhupada talks about that. And then he talks about this, there are many instances where an impersonalist has become a personalist. And okay, and then he talks about this upper varga, right? So in the Sanskrit, if you see, it says Parikshit Yena Apavarga Akhyam, right? Who was fixed on the knowledge of liberation. Now one may ask the question that Parikshit is a Mahabhagavata. How is he fixed on the knowledge of Apavarga liberation? From starting, he's a pure devotee, right? So how do we understand this, right? And here Prabhupada explains in the purport that upper varga, which is actually spoken of in relationship to Parikshit Maharaj, is actually pure devotion to the Lord. So Prabhupada really elaborates on that point that this stage of perfection is called upper varga, where one is actually engaged in service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the stage of perfect liberation. So perfect liberation means to be actually engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one way of understanding this verse is that knowledge can convert anyone who is upper varga to that who is pure devotee. In terms of Maharaj Parikshit, he's already a pure devotee, so he's relishing these topics more. There's also a verse in another example of this is that of the 4 Kumaras, right? And it says, Tasyaravinda Nayanasya Padaravinda Kinjalka Mishri Tulasi Makaranda Vayu, right? They actually, the 4 Kumaras, they just smell the tulsi leaves, which are actually attached to the lotus feet of Krishna. And then just when the smell entered their nostril, Antargata Swavivarena Chakaratesham. Antargata, they had like shivering of the body, a new experience of that, of the personal qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? They experience a change in the body and the mind, though they were actually attached to the impersonal Brahman realization. Right? Another example of from impersonalists, they actually become personal. And then also another famous verse we read, which actually talks about this point. It was there in Bhagavad Ratnavala. Who can say that? Very cool.
Atma Rama.
Atma Ramasya Muniyo Nirganti Api Urukrame Kurvanti Ahitukim Bhatim Ittam Bhuto Guno Hari. That this knowledge is so wonderful that even the impersonalists will become personal. Right? So, okay, so they are saying, please speak to us that very nectar that Sukadeva Goswami spoke to Maharaj Parikshit, that by hearing that, anyone will attain shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? Text 17.
Tanna param punyamasambhritartham akyanamatiyadbhuta yoga nishtam akyayananta charitopapanam parikshitam bhagavata bhiramam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thus, please narrate to us the narrations of the unlimited, for they are purifying and supreme. They were spoken to Maharaja Parikshit, and they are very dear to the pure devotees, being full of bhakti yoga.
So these verses are one way like glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So now they are saying, please speak this, please narrate to us these narrations of the unlimited, right? Ananta, right? For they are purifying and supreme. So there are 6 qualities that are actually mentioned of the subject matter of Bhagavatam. First, they say Param. It is a supreme. Why? Because it is actually talking about Bhakti Yoga, which is the conclusion of all the scriptures, right? That process of Bhakti Yoga. So it is Param. It is the highest of all philosophies, highest essence of all philosophies and processes. So it's Param. Then second is Punya. It is purifying. It is purifying. So why is this knowledge purifying? We already read, like Shoka Moha Bhayapaha, all our Shoka Moha Bhaya, it is going to eradicate, and it is going to purify us to such an extent that we'll become devotees of Lord Krishna. So purify. So Param, Punyam. First is Param, second Punyam. Third is as it is. Asamvrita Artham. Like we say Bhagavad Gita as it is, here we find the Sanskrit word for that. Asamvrita Artham. As it is. Or in other words, clearly narrate to us this description. The third quality, as it is. Fourth, Adbhutam, it is wonderful. Fifth, Yoga Nishtam, it is compact with Bhakti Yoga. It is all about Bhakti, Bhagavatam is all about Bhakti. And then the sixth point is Bhagavata Abhiram. It is actually very dear to devotees of the Lord. Therefore, Akhyamam, please recite to us, please narrate to us this nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam with these 6 qualities. So Param, Punyam, Asamvrita Artham, Adbhuta, Yoganishtam, and Bhagavad Abhirama. Right? Very dear to devotees. There's also one verse in the 12th canto where it says, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yet Vaishnavanam Priyam. This is in the end of the Bhagavatam, the last chapter of the Bhagavatam. It says, Yet Vaishnavanam Priyam, very dear to the Vaishnavas. So please speak this topic. And okay, so text 18. Perfect is a short purport about this. Bhagavatam is so pure and so relishable to all the devotees. Text 18. So text 18 now Suta Goswami is going to repeat.
Suta Uvacha Aho Vayam Janma Pritodya Hamsa Hasma Vridan Vrityapi Viloma Jata Doshkulya Madhim Vidunoti Shigram Mahatmanam Abhidhana Yoga.
Hare Krishna. Sri Suta Goswami said, O God, although we are born in the mixed caste, we are still promoted in birthright simply by serving and following the great who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with such great souls, one can without delay cleanse oneself of all disqualifications resulting from lower births.
Okay, so what is the mood here? See, Shonagadi Rishi, they have actually glorified Suta Goswami. Oh, Suta Goswami, you live a long life. You are actually giving us the Amrita, and the moment of your association cannot compare with any of the other perfection. So now they have glorified Suta Goswami. And when a devotee is glorified, what does he do? He expresses his humility. Actually, it is not me. Like we see this in Prabhupada and the nature of devotee. It's not me. The glories goes to who? My Guru Maharaj. Right? So actually, even in the case of Prabhupada, right? When devotees used to glorify Prabhupada, he said, the glories go to my spiritual master and to all of you. And he glorified also all his disciples. So now, Suta Goswami is doing exactly the same. He's glorifying his guru and he's glorifying all the Shonakadi Rishis. And he's saying, I am no one. I received the knowledge from Sukadeva Goswami, and because all of you here are such attentive hearers of the Bhagavatam, so inquisitive to hear, this knowledge is just coming out through me, just via media. So there is no glories on my part. Right? So Prabhupada in the purpose. So let's go to the verse. So here we see the humility of Suta Goswami and says, Aho Vayam Janma Brito Dya Hasma. So if you see, there's a word called Viloma Jataha in the second line. Viloma Jataha means I am born of a mixed caste. I am not even qualified. I have such a low birth. We see this, right? Devotees, they will focus on one small thing and say, oh, I am so fallen. Like when Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they went in front of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they said, we are worse than Jagai and Madhai. And they point out, they say, Jagai and Madhai, they never criticize the Vaishnava. But we are so bad that we are actually supporting this king who's actually doing all this, and they find out the lowest qualities and says like, oh, we are so fallen. So Suta Goswami is finding his lowest quality and saying, actually, my birth, I'm born of a mixed caste, right? Viloma Jataha, right? But that deficiency is there, but I was promoted to Vritaha, a higher birth. By whom? Vriddha Anuvritya. By serving those who are advanced in knowledge. Right? By serving those who are advanced in knowledge, my deficiency, my birth in a mixed caste was actually promoted. And then what to speak of those Abhidhana? By conversing with him, Mahat Tamama, great personalities. So he says, even by conversing with such great souls, one can without delay cleanse oneself of all disqualifications resulting from lower births. So Daushkulyam, disqualification of birth, is can be cleansed by hearing with such great souls. So what is Suta Goswami saying? I am actually very low born. And birth in a low family actually indicates that it is our previous prarabdha karma. We have done some sinful activities, and because of which we are getting a lower birth. So Suta Goswami is saying, I have got a lower birth because of my previous sinful activities. But the credit or the glories goes to whom? To those great souls, by whom? By conversing with him, by whom? By following whom? Actually, all our disqualifications is taken away. So glories to those personalities, not to me. I am actually born in a mixed caste. Is that verse okay? Yeah, meaning. Yes. Okay. So Prabhupada in the purport talks that how Suta Goswami, he had double association. Association by hearing and association by preaching. The point that how Prabhupada, glories to my Guru Maharaj, glories to my disciples. Double association. Suta Goswami, glories to Sukadev Goswami, from whom I heard, glories to all of you, because so you are so sincere hearers of the Bhagavatam. Right? So it is a wonderful point that, we get association by hearing, and we also get association by preaching, by sharing. So one may be in an assembly where one is actually speaking, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam to someone. But we are like so indebted to everyone in that assembly, because of whom we are getting an opportunity to relish Krishna, to speak Krishna. So association of the hearer, of the speaker, right, and an association of to whom we are speaking, the double association. So because of that, Suta Goswami, though he is born of an inferior birth, he is actually qualified to speak this message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada in the purport talks about this, because this is one of the themes of Srila Prabhupada, that even though one may be born in a lower birth of a Shudra, he is qualified to speak Bhagavatam. Why is that? Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Kenanaya, Ye Krishna Tattva Veta, Se Guru Hoy. This is one of the prime teachings of Srila Prabhupada, that irrespective of what birth you are born, Kiba Vipra, Brahmana, if you're a Brahmana or Sannyasi or Shudra, it does not matter. Yai Krishna Tattva Veti Se Guru. One who knows the science of Krishna, he is the qualified speaker of the Bhagavatam. That is the only qualification that's required. You should know Krishna Tattva. Yai Krishna Tattva Veta Se. So Prabhupada, I would encourage you to read this purport, because it's like one of the key points of Prabhupada's teachings. This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya, chapter 8, text 128. 8.128, CC Madhya. And Prabhupada says that one who's conversant with the science of Krishna, even though he is born in a lower birth, he can become a Vartama Pradaksha Guru, he can become a Diksha Guru, he can become a Shiksha Guru, because he knows the science of Krishna. And then Prabhupada also says, this is a power of pure devotees, that in their association, even the disqualification of a lower birth is washed away. So one may say, like normally, our birth in a low family is because of our prarabdha karma. Right? We are actually, our birth in a particular family is we are actually paying back the our prarabdha karma, basically. But it is said that without going through the activities of prarabdha karma, going through the experience of prarabdha, one cannot actually overcome prarabdha karma. So how is it that bhakti can overcome prarabdha karma? That is also explained further, but here just to make the point that because association of pure devotee is so powerful, so purifying, that even one's prarabdha karma can be washed out. Right? So Nectar of Devotion starts off with this. It says prarabdha karma, aprarabdha karma, kuta, bija. All these things can be washed away by bhakti. Bhakti is so powerful. So Prabhupada talks about that point. Power of pure devotees can actually purify even our prarabdha karma. Everything can be actually purified. Okay. So I think we'll stop here. There's like so many wonderful points. We'll continue next time and we'll complete the chapter next week. But yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can you repeat that CC Madhya, which chapter, which text?
Chapter 8, text 128.
Thank you.
Then Prabhupada also in this purport, he says that how Sukdev Goswami, when he was giving the knowledge, he didn't say, oh, Suta Goswami is here, he is born of lower birth, hence he cannot hear. He didn't make any distinction. So why should we make this distinction? He gives the example, Haridas Thakur, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami. Haridas Thakur was born in a Muslim family. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made him Namacharya. Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they were serving a Muslim Muslim king. And by then, they're actually considered outcasts, but they were actually established as the followers of Lord Chaitanya. So power of pure devotees. And yeah, and Prabhupada actually concludes that purport by saying, I will end with this last point. He actually says, I'm going to read the sentence of the purport. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the last paragraph in the third or fourth line. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to purify the whole atmosphere of the polluted world by sending qualified preachers all over the world. And it remains with the Indians to take up this task scientifically and thus do the best kind of humanitarian work. Right? So what is the verse Prabhupada is talking about? Anyone knows?
জন্ম হলে যা জন্ম সার্থক করে করো
Yes. Bharat bhumile hoile manushya janma ja janma sartha kari karo paroka. So those who are born in India, we have the special responsibility that we have to make our janma sarthaka. We have to perfect our life, and at the same time, we have to give this knowledge to others. We have to do that paro upkar. We have to do the best kind of humanitarian work by preaching Krishna consciousness. And this is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to purify the whole world by sending qualified preachers. So we have become qualified and preach the Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. That is the instruction for all of us. Okay, let's stop. So even this is a nice verse to read. This is CC Adi Leela, chapter 9, text number 41. The Prabhupada in the purpose says, this is only one Indian, he's talking to of himself. One Indian who has done this. Imagine if all the Indians actually take up the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and preach it all around the world. What will happen to the whole thing? Okay, so we'll stop here. So any final comments?
One time, Prabhuji, some devotee in this topic, he mentioned about Indians and the responsibility. So you were saying that in one lecture that why there are so many IT engineers outside of India. Why there are so many IT Indian engineers. So the purpose is this. That's why they're there.
This is true, right? You know, like we see, in particular in US, like all the temples, like, there's so many Indians who have left the country and come here. And yes, they have IT jobs and everything, but what are they doing? They are actually actively distributing books. They are preaching Krishna consciousness. They are actually, you know, this works, we are seeing it in action all over US, all over the world, actually. Anywhere you go, Singapore, Europe, Germany, you'll find Indians who are actually, hopefully, doing the task of giving Krishna to others. Thank you. Anyone else? Any final comments?
Prabhu, I just was like kind of like really taken back with this like very positive way when you said association with you know how Prabhupada you know with the guru as well as to the person who is preaching, you know, you know, to the person whom we are preaching. Like sometimes when we go out and knock the door, a person comes out with a hamburger in the hand, you know. Like at that point, how much can we appreciate that I am enjoying this, you know, association. We feel like running away from that place because of the smell. It's so unbearable at some point, you know. But then this is the thing that when you said that how when that because of that person opened the door, it gave me an opportunity to be able to speak or glorify, remember Krishna. You know, so it might be.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, you can go ahead. I'm done.
Very nice point, Mati. It gave me an opportunity to serve my Guru Maharaj, to serve Srila Prabhupada, because that person has opened the door. So how much grateful we are even to this person. And it's true, when you go door to door, you knock on the door, they open the door, and sometimes the smell is just like, you want to run away from there, right? But still we are grateful to that person that, okay, he's opened the door, maybe he'll take Bhagavad Gita, he'll give me an opportunity to serve Srila Prabhupada by distributing books. So we have double association. So it's nice to remember, you know, it's not when we are giving message, we are saying that, oh, you are no one, right? I know more. It's not the mood. We are grateful even to the person receiving the knowledge. Thank you, Mati. Okay, anything else? Radha, Radhika, you have a question? Come.
Yeah, I have a question. So one of the qualifications of a speaker was Bhagavat Pradhana, pure devotee of Krishna. And then sometimes that can make us feel like hesitant to speak, because we don't feel like we're a pure devotee. And how do we have how can we preach Krishna consciousness? But at the same time, then the other point was we get benefit by both hearing, but also by preaching. So how to get the confidence that, like, even I know so little and I'm not so knowledgeable, but I should still preach, or I should still speak about Krishna. How to get that confidence?
So if our life is, as here is we read, exclusively devoted to the service of Krishna, then Bhagavad Pradhana, then you're qualified to preach. Then how are we preaching? How are we speaking? The only reason we go out, we are preaching the message of Krishna consciousness, we are giving class, is because we have the order of our spiritual master to do it. And because as a humble servant, we are following the order of our spiritual master to do it, our spiritual master is empowering us, as using us as an instrument to speak the knowledge. Otherwise, with all our lust, anger, greed in our heart, what qualification do we have to speak this most exalted topic of Krishna Katha? That even great sages are actually speaking. What qualification do we have? Our only qualification is our desire to serve our Guru. Our Guru has given us the instruction, and because we have the small desire to serve, our Guru will use us as instrument to speak this message. Our only qualification is our desire to serve Krishna. Right? Now, you can say our desire to serve Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee. And because you are following a pure devotee, or a Gurujan, we can say, and is a pure devotee, and you're following a pure devotee, you will actually empower us to speak. Right? So on that is our only qualification to speak this most exalted topic of Krishna. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Prabhuji, related like what Mataji has said, one very nice example is given. It's like a postman. Like a postman, he carries a lottery or some amount of the reward for the person. Even he does not have that 10 millions, but he carry that thing, and then he give that thing. So it's like the devotee, even that, like what Mataji is saying, that doesn't feel qualified, but they get the authority to pass that thing to someone.
Very nice example. Even though he may not have $10 million, but he may give a check of $10 million. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Vijay Radhika.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I wanted to remind everyone, Sadhu Sangha registration begins at 10 a.m. today.
Oh, actually 1, Mataji, 1 p.m.
Yeah, it's a PST, Mataji.
Oh, PST.
Okay, so let's officially end the class then. Anyone has any final comments about that section we read? It's very sweet section, so I didn't want to rush through it. So next time also, the next few verses are so beautiful. So we'll spend some time, but hopefully we'll finish next chapter, next class. I mean this chapter, chapter 18. Okay. So thank you all so much. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. So thank you all so much for your wonderful association. I am very grateful for each one of you for your association. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, all devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful association.
Thank you so much to the best speaker and the best association.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for your association. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mati. Hare Krishna.